In this segment, we're going to talk about one last idea from dialogue, which is the connections between dialogue and question answering. And so obviously in the context of chatbots, we've seen lots of questions, which the system then answers. But here we're going to connect it a little bit more explicitly to some of the reading comprehension style question answering we saw, like Squad. So if we think about what happens when you ask a question in a setting like Squad, like when did Marie Curie win the Nobel Prize, dialogue can be a very natural way to interact with a system to get the information that you want. And so here's a data set due to Mohit Iyer et al., where, this was answering questions over these kind of semi-structured tables. The person might ask, okay, who are all of the superheroes in this, in this universe? And then the system returns a list. And then you ask which of them came from Earth, and then of those, who appeared most recently, right? And so, in many cases, when you're trying to figure out something, you're going to ask a series of questions maybe, or try to zero in on the information you want rather than kind of doing it in one shot. The problem is that this is a very dynamic process, right? Where different users are going to have different flows through this. And so it's hard to build just one static data set that really captures what people want to do. Regardless, there have been a few efforts to do this. One of them, due to Ansel Choi et al., is a data set called QAC, question answering in context. And so this is like a much expanded version of Squad that treats the interaction with the content of a Wikipedia article as a conversation. So if someone asks, what is the origin of Daffy Duck? The teacher here, in this case, would be what the system would hopefully return, or what an annotator returns during the annotation process. Talks about, Porky's Duck Hunt. And then the student might ask follow-up questions like, what was he like in that episode? Was he the star? Who was the star? Did he change a lot? Responding to information the student or user learns from the system, and asking these kinds of follow-ups. So this is cool in that we would hope that we could type something into Google, get a response back, and then start to ask these sorts of questions that refer to prior concepts that we've seen without having to necessarily retype them, and let us drill down on the information about this particular document. So there have been a lot of systems built to address this task. Unfortunately, many of them don't necessarily work for general purpose dialogues, or don't necessarily work well beyond the types of dialogues that you see and the types of articles that you see for this task in particular. Another idea that's kind of related is what's called conversational machine reading from Saidi et al. And the idea is that maybe what we want actually is, rather than have a kind of information, information exploration of some article in Wikipedia, maybe we have more of a kind of tree structured exploration of something like a legal statute. In this case, I'm working for an employer in Canada. Do I need to carry on paying UK national insurance? And then the system is able to ask the appropriate follow-up questions in order to figure out how to actually get to the answer that the user is looking for. So this is a little bit different than what we just saw, in that the system is now driving the dialogue a little bit more based on its understanding of, for example, the legal statute. And there also might be multiple different flows that you want to be able to go down when you're talking about a particular article. So this is also a kind of interesting idea, but I guess the bottom line I'll give about both of these things is that annotating this data is hard. Fundamentally, this is the kind of thing where, in order to do it right, you need a real running system. That's very expensive and hard to do from the perspective of academic research, and many of the industry labs that might have stuff like this are, have it sort of closed off, so we don't really know what's going on in there. But regardless, this kind of connects up the ideas from dialogue with the ideas from question answering, and helps kind of unify these two areas in a pretty nice way. That's it for this segment.